Welcome to the TechArena, featuring authentic discussions between tech's leading innovators and our host, Allyson Klein. Now, let's step into the arena.
Welcome to the TechArena. My name's Allyson Klein, and today I am really excited by our guest, Eduardo Silva Pereira, co-founder and CEO of Calyptia. Welcome to the program, Eduardo. How are you doing today?
Hey, Allyson, first of all, thanks for having me today and doing really great. I've seen an exciting weeks of internal news at the company, and we are doing well. We had a lot of to talk in terms of the market, the company, and I think that this week is to that because we have great news around the ecosystem, data processing, all the topics that we're going to touch. So happy to be here and be able to share this with you.
For those of our audience that listen to the TechArena, they know that I'm a huge fan of observability. So I was really excited to have you on the show. Why don't we just start with an introduction of you and Calyptia and why you decided to form this company?
Yeah, well, my name is Eduardo Silva Pereira. I'm originally from Chile, now based in Costa Rica. And I used to work for Oracle for 7 years. And the latest time I was doing kernel patching, operating system things. And after that, I joined a startup that was called Treasure Data, where they were providing one of the first SaaS platform to host Hadoop as a service, right? And as part of that journey, they created this agent, multiple environments that was called Fluent Bit, right? I'm talking about 2011, 2012. I joined that team in 2014. And Fluent Bit was a project that solved one specific problem. And it's the same problem we have today, but at a different scale. That at that time, I'm talking almost 10 years ago, different applications were generating a ton of data in different formats. And when you wanted to do data analysis, it was really hard to concentrate this data into one place to analyze and run analytics and extract the value. And Fluent Bit was one of the solutions that was created in open source with a pluggable architecture that could collect data from files, from Twitter feeds, from log firewalls, for all the places that you can imagine. And the community built around, 1,000 plugins available to connect and send data between multiple places. At the same time, when I joined that team, I created this project called Fluent Bit because we knew that at that time, we're talking about 2014, that IoT space was really hot at that moment. Everybody was talking about 2020, your microwave will be talking to you and everything will be connected, right? But all this software that will run on these devices will generate data. So the problem that you got in the infrastructure now moves to your house, to your home, to your office. And you will get the same challenge, right? How do you collect all this data in a smooth way where you can run analytics at the end? Because that is your final goal. And Fluent Bit was created for that as a lightweight alternative to Fluent Bit, was part of the same project, and both projects were donated around 2015-16 to the CNCF when the foundation was created right after Kubernetes was there. People started using Fluent Bit in Kubernetes to move data at scale from Kubernetes cluster. It was pretty new. And after that, there were certain challenges where people said, hey, it's really hard to process data at a higher scale with Fluent Bit because it has restrictions in terms of the language that is written in. It was Ruby at that time, and Fluent Bit was written in C. So it becomes like an interesting alternative in terms of efficiency to process and move data at a higher scale by consuming less resources. And if you look at the history of generating data from applications, you realize that data has been always a bottleneck, not because of data itself, but dealing with data has been a bottleneck. And today, if you look at every company is generating 20, 30% more data from applications, system services, from hardware, and now it becomes a bottleneck. So how do I process this at a higher scale? And with time, Fluent Bit and Fluent Bit becomes like the default in the industry. Now, if you go to any cloud provider, go to, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, all of them went Fluent Bit or Fluent Bit somehow. So this is a vendor agnostic tool that moves data at scale in all the infrastructure places. And Fluent Bit, you can run it in a very small Raspberry Pi to a server that has, 96 CPU cores. And one of the challenges around data processing is like first tools to move data we're just able to move data collect from A, send it to B, and in B, you got the experience of analytics. Now you can think about Splunk, you can think about Elasticsearch, or any type of fancy database with analytics engine. And when you start seeing that environments grows, there's more data to process, your destination, your backend where you run analytics becomes to be the next bottleneck. Because the thing is that you just move the problem from one place to the other. You just move the problem from the left to the right. Now you realize, one interesting approach would be, what about if we move certain analytics pieces that are today in the right to the left? The left, you can call it the edge, where the data is being generated. And the Fluent D ecosystem and Fluent Bit also allows you to run queries, allows you to enrich data, allows you to do any type of data transformation or trigger alerts for when something is happening. Usually, if you talk to any kind of user like that sends data to Loki or Splunk, most of them are doing alerting. Example, if the data contains this type of pattern, like an error warning, do something, trigger a message, ping somebody because some action needs to be done. Right? But usually that happens now in the database after you ingested all, gigabytes of data and you indexed that data, and that takes a lot of time. And then you realize, oh, there's something wrong. Now with Fluent D and Fluent Bit, you can do this as soon as you collect data before the data moves out of that box. You can trigger an alert, you can take some action. And it could be an HTTP call, could be a Slack, could be any type of solution. So one of the biggest problems today, we have more data, and from a business side, more data does not correlate with more value. Actually, it's totally the opposite.
I love that what you just said. I was thinking about what you said about my microwave. It's still not talking to me, but many other things are. And talking to companies, they're overwhelmed with the amount of data and the various locations that they're hosting that data and trying to seek value. So take me through your thought process as we look at these distributed computing environments. How are you helping companies specifically? And you talked a little bit about it in your first answer, but what do you think is the challenge in terms of data volume? And what do you think the concept of compute gravity from cloud to edge means as it relates to tackling this big challenge of data volume and turning that data volume into value?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I would try to answer with different pieces here. I think that there are different challenges associated with data volume. One of them is performance. And for different companies, performance could be a different thing. Some of them is how fast I can query that data, while others is how fast I can move this data, right? Everybody has its own metrics. But then the common thing across all the environments is moving the data. You have to move it, right? And the moment that you move it, that is really expensive in terms of computing cost, hardware, memory, network, CPU. For example, you can have a car. Everybody talks about how fast a car can be, right? But nobody talks about how much fuel or gas you need. Right? Are you paying attention how much you need? In data, people does, right? They just focus on, I need to go fast at any expense. And then you have higher cost, your CPU, your servers start to struggle and becomes a big problem. The other thing is like with data, I think that from the user side, we found with our customers that some of them don't know how much data they have.
Right.
They don't know also how much they have and what type of data it is. Right. And for example, we got one, this is from the company Calyptia side, we have one big customer that play in the security space. They collect thousands and thousands of firewall messages. And the moment that they deploy our technology, they say, oh, now I'm not optimizing my environment. Now I'm collecting more data than before. Yes, because your technology that you used to have, it was not able to scale. Now you're collecting more data, but now you can take some decisions on that. Do I need this data? If you cannot collect it, you don't know what you have. And in the user side, they are still finding this discovery process that they need to learn to identify what is useful for them and what is not useful. right? And there's no pattern for all the customers, all the users. Everything is different. Every use case is different. And we have seen some efforts in the market around trying to automate this discovery process with machine learning, time series forecasting, and some of them somehow works, but at some point, every user is different, every use case, and every business is different. So it's really hard to get the right insights. And the other thing with data volume is all companies are turning into software companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's as a fact. Everybody becomes a software company. You get more software, you have more data to process, and then you got the next problem. Yeah, analytics. Also, your engineering teams are investing maybe wrongly the time that they have to move the data instead of have right tools or the right partners to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because when moving the data, there's a lot of complexity. It's like network fails a lot. What happens when the networks goes down? That generates back pressure. You cannot move the data fast enough. You have to store that data into the file system. And at some point, if things goes wrong, you have to sacrifice data. And which data you have to sacrifice? So there's a lot of decisions in the middle when moving this data at scale. But if you think that you can take some decisions on the edge where the data is being generated, right? You can reduce noise. You can try to implement your own criteria to say, this data is not relevant for me. Don't send it. Report that exists. Yeah, that's fine. So I don't know if that answered the main question that you had.
Yeah, I think so. The other thing that I'm wondering is, you've got great traction with the open source solutions. Fluent Bit and Fluent D are being utilized by all of the major cloud service providers. They've got broad ubiquity across the cloud. What are you delivering with your commercially available solution with Calyptia that takes the solution even further? And what has the industry response been thus far?
Yeah, good question. One of the things that we discover from our users that they value the most from a product like Calyptia Core, which is our flagship product, is the simplicity to integrate systems.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same to say, deploy this product, connect, create pipelines, integrate all your system in, 10 minutes versus go configure Fluent Bit and take a couple of days between test and try.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I think that everything, even in life, is about simplification, right? And Fluent Bit is a very low-level product that is for infrastructure, right? But if you look at the scope of people, who needs to consume data and are in the observability space somehow, we consider that observability is just one part of what we cover as a company. They just need to analyze the data. They just need a fast way to enrich data or discard it. And they want to remove the dependency of IT people that can handle that for them. Because it takes time. And trust me, nobody likes to configure pipelines manually.
No,
I would love to say, yeah, and I love to use Fluent Bit because I can configure all this stuff. Okay, yeah, people love it because it solves the problem, but that doesn't mean that it's a exciting experience. I think exciting experience doesn't come with a configuration file, a Unix file. Right? It comes with a nice UI that simplifies in 2 clicks, hours of work.
Now, Eduardo, you said that you had some exciting news this week from the ecosystem and how you're engaging with partners. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, of course. For example, I suspect you were in Intel for many years. You were able to learn a bit of how was the old Linux experience for users. I started using Linux around 99, right? I think that when I started college. And the experience around 20 years ago was really raw, right? If you want to use a modem or connect to a network, you have to get a new kernel, you have to compile it. You have, at that age, I used to have a lot of time, free time, which I don't have now. And with time, different solutions start to appear in Red Hat Linux or to distributions that simplify the experience and make sure that you can use this without investing hours. Now, in the cloud space today, if we fast forward 2014, 15, with the launch of Kubernetes, I started like the very old Linux too. The experience was very raw, right? You have to learn a bunch of commands, learn about networking, storage, API, how things connect. yeah, it's really cool as an architecture point of view, but you have to manage a lot of things manually. And then you have this new concept, same as in Linux, of distributions, things that comes with simplicity. Red Hat OpenShift, like Rancher, right? And they give you a great experience on top of Kubernetes as a platform. So you're not using Kubernetes, you're using OpenShift or using Rancher with a UI, everything looks good. But now when you deploy your applications and you say, oh, great, I'm using this platform, now I'm going to move to, in observability, you get the same experience that in Linux 20 years ago, right? And that is honest truth today. People, vendors can say whatever they want, but that's true. People has a huge pain when they deploy application, now it's time to monitor. I'm not saying that there's no solution. They are, but they are not vendor agnostic. Yeah, you have to get married with one vendor, right? And this is where Calyptia Core comes in to bring you the experience of this observability type of distribution to manage your pipeline in a very easy way, so you can focus on extracting value and do what you want to accomplish at the end. You want to analyze data. You don't want to create pipelines. You want to analyze your data. Creating pipelines, because that's the way to do it, right? And we launched a couple of new features as a it can be deployed inside Kubernetes or outside a standalone solution. But one of the things that it solves is cluster logging. So imagine that you have a Kubernetes cluster and you want to move the data from your nodes to a database. Yeah, you deploy Fluent Bit, you create a daemon set, or you use the Helm chart. And that works. But the moment that your company starts segmenting the logic of how the platform is used with namespaces, or in Red Hat OpenShift is called projects, they start to assign certain things to a namespace, which is a logical segmentation of us in the cluster. And those guys doesn't know anything. They don't know anything else about other namespaces. That's where they work. That's what they know. But if they are isolated, they still have this need of, I need to have my own telemetry pipeline. And the telemetry pipeline for this team is different than the other, because both maybe are sending the data to different endpoints, Splunk, Elastic, Kafka. Every company uses multiple. They don't use one, most of them. And Calyptia Core now comes with a native support for these namespaces. So you just get the product installed on Kubernetes, and you just say, I'm using Kubernetes, enable cluster logging, and now create pipelines for your namespace. So you can give autonomy to your teams, and you're not on IT operation faults. And I think that's one of the major values that people or our customers are finding with this type of tool, that it works. It works and auto scale, because it's hard to predict when the data, you will have more volume of data, but this can auto scale, or it can reconcile, so it can auto heal if something goes wrong. So these are about things that get a lot of value. In the other side, we're just talking about moving data from A to B. But I told you at the beginning that one of the big values is to enable companies to bring the business logic into the pipeline. One example, we have some company that they process transactions, and those transactions, they come logs with a lot of credit card numbers, right? This is our kind. But these teams has very specific needs. They said, if the transaction or the credit card number belongs to American Express, Visa, or MasterCard, I have to take a different action for one of those. And where you're going to take that action, once you ingest the data after a database, or you wanted to do it on the node, on the edge. And that is possible. So Calyptia Core, we allow to do all this processing, implement all this logic with a simple UI, with a few clicks. And if a few clicks are not enough, because it's a very custom logic, you can write some Lua script. It supports the Lua language. And if you don't know Lua, and this is where we're testing out, we have a simple interface with AI, which you write in natural language, I want to do with this data XYZ, and it will generate the processing rules for you.
Nice. That really opens up to a lot of teams that may not have those technical skills. When you were talking, one of the things that I've talked about on the program is that observability is such a key capability to the future of distributed computing. And I'm sure that you have some goals with Calyptia. Where do you see the company going in the next 18 months? And what do you want to be known for as you continue to make progress in delivering solutions and gaining customers?
Oh, great. I love those type of questions. I always consider that we have been lucky enough to be in a position and execute in innovation. And we have traction of creating something that adds value to the market from the open source area. And Fluent Bit happened the same. Now, if you ask me what our goal with Calyptia, I think that it simplifies people's lives when it's about to extract value from data. But to get to that point, we have to go from the bottom, right? Solve the infrastructure problems, level up the user. We start with an agent with a Unix file. Now we're playing with auto healing, auto balancing. Now you have a UI. Now you have processing rules on top of that. Now you have some kind of AI automation, if that is not enough. So from a product perspective, we want that the user can achieve their goals in the most smooth way. We want that Calyptia becomes remained as a company, but we don't want to kill it, right? If I'm talking 20 years in the future, I want that when people think about Calyptia, hey, these guys solve everything around moving data at scale, and nobody else has to think again how that works. Because today, every company has to think, okay, how data movement works, what are the agents, what are the tooling that we need? And we want to come up with a platform that abstracts everything. Now, same as the moment that people now sees OpenShift or sees Kubernetes, they don't think of an API server, they don't think of a worker node, they just think of Kubernetes just like a platform where you can deploy applications. And that's it. Magically, things happens. That's where we want to go to with our products. And the team that we have in Calyptia is very interesting. Most of us, we have a strong background in open source. So we got people who were hacking different projects from Canonical. I came from Fluent. I used to have my other projects. And my co-founder, Anwar, came from Elastic, from the Elasticsearch team too. So there is a lot of, we are a team of builders with a strong open source background that we focus on solve problems and innovate on that. I think we are lucky enough to get traction in open source and with customers now because we are not in a position to, hey, we're shipping something to accomplish X, Y, Z. We are redefining how things can be done in the future. And I think that's what personally excites me a lot. So it's like we are defining the vision of how things should be done. It could be right, could be wrong, customers and users will say. And now from our investment perspective from a company, one thing is products, but also we want to, we just started other open source projects to visualize data and add more value where we don't have the right tooling in the market today. We have options, but I think that all options always can be better.
This is really exciting, Eduardo. I love what you said about Linux and observability needing to grow up and be more user-friendly. And it sounds like you've assembled the right software team to get us there and to make that much more widely deployable and usable. One final question for you. Where can folks find out more about you and the Calyptia team and stay in touch and engage in deploying your solutions?
Yeah, great. So we have, of course, social channels. We have our Twitter, Instagram account, which is more informal communication. Now we are 100% committed to improve the community of Fluent Bit and the community of Calyptia. So we are people investing to have a healthy community in Fluent Bit projects. So we have these bi-weekly calls with our users, our companies using the technology. But that's where we are wearing our OSS hat, right? Hey, you got problems with Fluent Bit, maybe we can help. And we have maintainers from other companies like Google, AWS, that everybody tried to find, I got this problem, I have this problem too, or maybe we should work together and come up with a solution. That's a way that we define the future for that. And for Calyptia, also, we're going to launch our Carolina, new head of marketing is here in the call. We will launch a new way to connect with our community through Slack and other channels that we're going to be start announcing maybe next week, where we can engage with the community more in an open way. Because I think what we learned from open source and from many years ago, actually, if you look at Fluent D and you look at Fluent Bit, is not what Sarah created Fluent D or created Fluent Bit, what it will get in mind, right? We just built some foundations. But after that, we got hundreds of people who have contributed with ideas, with code. And everything that you see in Fluent Bit today is thanks to the feedback loop that we get with users. And the same thing we plan to do with Calyptia. We don't want to just push a solution that might not make sense, because listening to users, community, and customers is really important.
Eduardo, thank you so much for being on the TechArena today. It was a real pleasure. I can't wait to see where Calyptia goes, and would love to have you back on the show sometime.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invitation. I'll be happy to come back, share about the news, or talk any type of things around open source, company, technology. So whatever you want, I'm here.
Thanks for joining the TechArena. Subscribe and engage at our website, thetecharena.net. All content is copyright by the TechArena.